think there's really nice.
Oh, good marks.
Kia ora and welcome to the Environmental Implementation Committee meeting for March. I'll just note the agenda is for 2025 and the co-chair is Lloyd, who's joining us online today from somewhere else. Welcome. And we've got apologies for lateness from Councillor Noon. He will be joining us. He's had another engagement. And I think we may be having some technical issues for Councillor Laws, who will join us. Okay, we've got pretty blue skies here too, Lloyd. Thank you for showing us the sunny spots that you're at.
Good hair.
Thank you. We'll get into the agenda as there is no changes to the agenda as I understand. Sorry, no public forum. Confirmation of the agenda, there's no changes to the agenda. No other matters that need to be brought up. The declarations of interest, so I'll just remind members of the need to stand aside from any decision making when a conflict arises, and you all know that that is your role to manage, not mine. Presentations, there are none scheduled. This is going quickly. The next one is confirmation of the minutes of the 7th of November 2024. They have been pre-circulated. Have we got any comments or discussion or changes? I'm happy to move that they're true and correct record, seconded by Councillor Gretchen Robinson. Any discussion? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Open actions from resolutions. There are no open actions for consideration. That takes us to item 9, which is matters for consideration. Welcome to staff on the Integrated Catchment Management Program update. Exciting stuff. This is where the non-regulatory space where people are engaging. We're providing an opportunity for engagement in a different way, and it's having sat through the meetings yesterday, I can say it's a very happy space to be at. Welcome, Anna, Libby, and Joe. This is a report to update on the Integrated Catchment Management Program, share an external evaluation of the process for developing the first catchment action plan, which is in the Catlins, and to seek a nomination for a councillor with inventory representation in the Te Ārai catchment to join the ICM working group. Do you want to make any comments about the evaluation report or about the project, which is going stunningly well from my perspective?
Yes, this is on now. No particular comments, just to say that update was written prior to me going on leave at the end of January. So there may be some further updates that have been added in while I've been away, but also we've had a couple of recent workshops that just may add to that. If you have any further questions, I'm happy to answer them. So,
does anyone have any questions? It appears that your reports are so well written that it does leave no room for questions. Do you want to say anything about the evaluation report? The fact that you've done the evaluation and we're carrying on, I presume, is some means that it's been well received.
The evaluation report was done as a matter of course for our first catchment action plan. It was really useful. There's some great learnings in there. There's also nice to see some reaffirmation of the things we have done well. Being our first CAP, we always knew that we could continue to improve, and we have been. And as you've seen in the report, there's a list of things there that we've really pretty much already taken on board prior to even receiving the evaluation report. So it's an evolving process.
Thank you. I think I've got a question from Councillor Malcolm.
Just probably in process.
Could you use your microphone, please?
Yeah, wait on. I'm just flicking this first before I talk, and I know that I'm not going to talk the wrong things. So we are being asked to make 3 recommendations. So are you anticipating at the moment that we discuss those recommendations?
Initially, it's just questions. If you've got questions on the actual paper, and yes, if you want to discuss that, I'm happy to hear a recommendation or resolution with details of that, if that's what you wish.
Okay, I will just open for a question. I'll just have to go back to it. Yeah, I can do that. Thank you.
you happy if,
While we're waiting,
Yes.
I could foreshadow moving the
If you wish.
recommendations and first two are straightforward. The third one, I think we just need to word that slightly differently, that we recommend a nomination to council. But I would suggest that council is named today to be recommended, and that is councillor Kate Wilson. But just foreshadowing that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, the recommendation is in the first line of that motion. I think it,
Oh, I see. Sorry.
yeah, no, I absolutely understand where you're coming from, thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Again, delegations. So, thank you. That's foreshadowed. We'll get to that part in a moment. Councillor Malcolm, have you had time to gather your thoughts?
Yeah, I have, and on page 34, could you explain the paragraph that begins ensures more buy-in and oversight from IRC governance to strengthen the alignment between CAP and IRC objectives? What is the intention of that? And in what way are you requiring greater governance work in that process?
From recollection, that particular item was really around alignment between the CAP processes and ORC documents that set that strategic direction, i.e. the strategic directions document. The CAP in itself is obviously, it's hard to answer this because the evaluator wrote these based on comments they received from a number of people, and I don't know who they all were.
Yeah.
I was interviewed about this one and pointed out that the ORC has a number of documents that set the directions from very broad, from strategic directions and values and missions, right down to our long-term plan and our annual plan. And that the ICM process is fully aligned with the long-term plan and therefore those directions. But aligning it to the broader strategic directions at the time was not necessarily not aligned, it was just harder to draw those really direct alignments. So I think the external evaluator took that and said, well, is there a way we can improve this? Looking at the governance structure. And one of the things I had mentioned is that we have the ICM working group in place, which provides a lot of that nexus of alignment between all the directions. So it wasn't that, in my mind, that I saw it as an issue, but more that it's something that can we strengthen with more direct, I guess, alignment or connection to where the broader intention is the long-term plan, the annual plan, and the ICM program, which happens at the very detailed level, of course.
And part of it was also we didn't have the long-term plan with funding to align. I have to say that the working party is now taking probably more active. They're coming to meetings as well, so that gets that working, got the governance group in there as well.
Yeah. So, may I continue?
Yes.
Yeah, so, on page 36, which is the recommendations of that report, is that what you're seeking for us to agree to action?
That's not in the intention of this paper. It's for noting that we have done the evaluation and that the work of the Libby's team and myself is continuing to work on those recommendations.
I thought that's what the motion said, though. Yeah, I'll have to find it. So the recommendation at the start of the paper, notes evaluation report on the process of the pilot CAP and the steps to implement the recommendations from the evaluation.
So those are the steps within the paper itself that we've said where we're taking on board information from that evaluation report and have either implemented them or will look to implement them. So that's within the paper itself, and it's in table 1.
Yeah.
So we're just really seeking, that's the key part there. So noting the evaluation report itself, and then it's table 1 that we're looking at also getting that support round rather than the report.
Right, okay, so which takes quite a few of those recommendations, but just slightly rewords them. So, so if I can then look at those then, so that's on that table on 11. So one of the things that appears to come from the paper is the ability of mana whenua to resource. There are resourcing options for, we're looking at positions of co-chairs and greater timing between a working group setting out a policy and going back to Runaka and giving them more time and everything. So I just wonder, so we go and put that, we go and say, well, now you have a role as a co-chair. If that's not being resourced, where does the group sit? And is that a fair impost to put on the whole community? And is it actually doing anything to benefit the catchment? I'm really struggling with that. When one part of the report saying they're struggling with resources and need more time and need more resources, yet we're establishing positions that may, or on the surface, will slow the process down and possibly cause greater issues with existing members because they want to get on with things.
Yeah, good question. So we hold the opportunity for mana whenua to be a co-chair, and we speak with Te Ao Marama and Okaha and whoever would be the relevant potential co-chair. If that's not taken up by mana whenua, then it can be taken up by someone else. So if they identify there's a resourcing gap, then we can help manage that by someone else taking that co-chair position if it is not to be filled by mana whenua.
So where do I see that? I'm happy with that approach. So where do I see that contained within here? Or is that just,
It might not be specific in there, but we can make that more specific, but we give that first opportunity to mana whenua. If they don't want to take it up, then we would offer it to someone else or potentially not have a co-chair, just have a chair.
Yeah,
go for it.
so I just wonder if we could have some wording around, look, I'm happy with the concept, but that is the logistics of it and the resourcing of it. We need some, all of a sudden, I don't want a position created somewhere, no matter who it's for, that all of a sudden stymies the actions of AORC or of the community.
I could just add to that, and thank you for raising it. The table that's in your paper outlines the actions that we're looking at, and in there we haven't actually talked about the taking on the recommendation of the co-chair. Having said that, as Libby said, it is an opportunity that may or may not be taken up. The support that the lack or the where we've said making sure we provide appropriate support to mana whenua representatives was as much around the cultural support in the room as it was any actual physical capacity to do the work. Obviously, lengthening out the time is taking into consideration the fact that many groups, Runaka as well as other community groups, meet monthly. And if we meet monthly and then ask for anybody to bring back thoughts from a wider audience, we may have missed one of their meetings. So it's really a logistics issue there around the lengthening of the time in between our workshops. Some workshops definitely lend themselves to longer time in between. There's a hell of a lot of work we need to do in between those. So the support was multifaceted, not just a timing support issue. And I don't believe our paper says that we will or will not do a co-chair in the actions that we've put in front of you.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something that we can pick up through, I think, in terms of reference and the working group. So it is something that we can work through with that group and the coaches to pick up on that intent that spaces will be held. But if they aren't filled, then we will ensure that doesn't delay. But we still want to achieve the outcomes of providing that space and our partnership intent. So I think that's something we can pick up.
Am I correct in thinking that the terms of reference will come back to this table anyway? Or not? Is that just going to, I can't recall, I thought the Catlins did, but.
The initial terms of reference for the Catlins did come to council at some point a year and a half ago. Terms of reference for the Upper Lakes, I believe, also was attached to a council paper some time ago. We haven't got a new terms of reference for an ICG coming up. The only terms of reference we do have, which hasn't come to council but went to the ICM working group and hasn't been finalised there, is the an amended terms of reference for the Catlins group that's ongoing in delivering the catchment action plan.
Thank you. Is that everything, councillor Malcolm?
Oh, no, I have got a few more.
That's good.
Possible. So I suppose how, yeah, and I suppose, my issue around the time, you've explained the timing issue that if an organisation or if a representative's got to report back to an organisation or group to get, I can understand that, but I would hate to think that was, became the modus operandi for every meeting, and that it should only be to specific things.
And the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so I am coming to the question. So when will you determine whether that needs to go back to a group? I'm seeing it on groups that I am currently on at the moment where they have representatives, where Manawhenua have representatives on that should be making pretty basic decisions that are all of a sudden being taken back to the heads of the Ranaka to make that decision. And so I'm just talking basic ticking off the accounts of the stuff that transactional stuff that really doesn't, in my opinion, wouldn't need philosophical oversight, that should be just getting ticked off. So again, it's about slow. It's again the reaction of the other people within the group that if we're continually slowing the process down. So I don't want to get that. I'm sorry.
If I understand the question, that, I mean, as Andrew said, with any group that has to go back and talk to a committee or other representation or thoughts or inputs, we will account for that timing wise where we can, but our ultimate aim is to ensure that we are able to deliver something on time and to have that full participation across the spectrum, and the team is really aware of making sure that we achieve those outcomes. So it's not something I can give you a concrete answer to, because each individual group has their own delegations and powers, and that's catchment groups and people, but we do expect people to be able to come and participate and make decisions. But again, ultimately, any group across that will have their own setup behind. But the team is very much aware of the importance of a participatory process and that we deliver a timely product. So there's not a firm answer I can give you about imposing firm deadlines on people. We do that when we can, but the team has managed it to date across the program.
I have more, but I see there's a hand up. So.
Okay, sorry, the first question, look, Councillor McCall had his hand up and it's gone down. I presume you're okay, Lloyd? In which case I'll go to Councillor Laws.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, well done.
Brilliant. Sorry, I've come late because I had to download the Zoom app before I got here. I assume we're doing the first issue and that includes the key findings of the evaluation report, yeah?
Indeed, it's questions. We're in question time at the moment.
Thank you. I've got some questions to do with page 28, 29 of 15, 16 of the report, 28, 29 of the agenda item. So I'm asking the authors or the council staff that are responsible following two questions. The first question is, having read the whole paper, it seems that the primary problem here is what? And that Mana Whenua reps are turning over too quickly, not turning up, not engaged. Have I read the report correctly? Is that a summary of the, and you want to improve that? Is that accurate summary?
I don't think it is, but I will hand over to Sal.
No, not quite. The Mana Whenua representation for the Catlins is obviously, this is only one process that we've got today. There were two, both turned up. One of them changed careers and no longer was associated with the Hokanui Rūnaka. So we contacted Hokanui Rūnaka many times and said, you're welcome to nominate another representative, of course. And that didn't occur. The Awarua representative turned up to, I wasn't at all the workshops, but I think it was all bar one potential workshop, and one of them was potentially online. So the input was excellent. The issue that I took from the report, and having spoken at length to the evaluator, and not trying to, it's an anonymised report. There were other people who weren't formally Runaka representatives, but may have spoken on the same issue. So I'm not trying to indicate where the comments came from. The main issue was being a person from a Runaka trying to speak on behalf of Runaka when they may or may not, depending on how their organisation works, had that authority every time, and not having moral, if you like, or other support in the room for some viewpoints that may have been potentially outside the realm of the majority of the room. I'm not saying they were at odds with, but just what came through from the representatives was feeling a little uncomfortable potentially, and more support, more direction and guidance about expectations from the ORC and from their Runaka would have been useful. So it's a difficult space for us as a team to navigate, but we have been working with our working group, the ICM working group, to talk about at the big picture level, how do we bring in a structure that reflects the partnership more strongly through these ICGs, Integrated Catchment Group, as they're working through some complex, some big issues and some ongoing landscape-wide opportunities.
Can I also say, Michael, there were other mana whenua members present who weren't Runaka representatives. And the Catlins is a wee bit different because it goes across the boundaries of Otago and Southland, so that they had a call on their time and understood the Southland model. So it was a slightly complex space to be in, but there certainly was a lot of input. In fact, the three of the mana whenua are still remaining involved in the governance group. So the report probably picked that out as it was a difficult, the process is difficult to go back and get information and involve the Runaka, because that is just the nature of having a working group that's trying to keep on productively going forward in the planning. So I think the idea that they can get that Runaka approval is a difficult place to be, and I'm not sure how that can be resolved, but the actual active participation was very constructive from my point of view, having sat through almost every meeting.
Okay, but that doesn't seem to be our problem, does it? So that's their problem, the Runaka. I mean, you'd expect Runaka reps to turn up, and we're going forward now on these ICM groups. You'd expect them to turn up with authority to be able to make decisions without constantly referencing back to whoever might be their authority. Yeah, and so therefore, on the recommendations that you've got on table 1, you're trying to address that in part by suggesting that a mana whenua co-chair, if I got this right, might be a potential solution to that particular problem.
Michael, sorry, just before you came on, that question was answered. It isn't the action that the staff have recommended, it's what came out of the recommendation of the report.
Yeah, I know.
The staff have addressed that in a different way and haven't suggested the co-chairs. But I also have to say that it's an iterative process where there aren't actually decision making. You're sort of drafting a plan and you then go back and consider it at the next meeting, and then you go to the next stage and consider that. So because of the way it's done, it's not really decision making, and it's the consensus, and you stop and think about it, there aren't any decisions made. It is the drawing up the plan and then you consult with the community. So to that extent, but it's just bringing the Runaka on the ride, and it may be a problem that they have going back to their own Runaka as much as, and this was just one attempt to see if they could resolve it that way. So the staff haven't recommended the co-chairs though.
Okay. The other issue that was raised in the report and hasn't been touched on, but I want to know what the official response of staff is on this. There's a bullet point on page 16 of the report. It's page 29 of my council agenda, but it's page 16 of the report that says, ensure that mana whenua knowledge and tribal boundaries are adequately acknowledged in CAT decision making. And then it goes on to say this, I'll just read it very quickly. ORC boundaries, expertise and worldviews brought to decision making may be at odds with the Maori worldview and Takawak tribal boundaries. For example, Kaiuta Kitai has not featured predominantly in the CAP development process yet. This is significant to a mana whenua worldview. Now that's in the report, it's a suggested improvement. Have we addressed that in this report? And if,
Oh,
if
by the way,
so-
oh, sorry, when this launched, it was when the RPS was about to come out, the decision, and in that process, the boundaries of the Catlins FMU changed while we were literally doing this. And so there was a disconnect between what the ORC councillors in 2019 signed off as an FMU and then what was agreed through the RPS process and what the Runaka were understanding. So that issue relates to something that we had to resolve. I think sorry to staff, I don't mean to answer this, but I was in the room when this discussion, and so we had Runaka saying this is what we see as the boundaries, the FMU boundaries, which were different, and it just caused an issue at the start. So again, that's been resolved through the RPS decision.
okay, well, that's fine, but it's in the report that I've got, read over the weekend, and it isn't answered in the report of the paper that you've just said, but at least you've answered the question. Thank you. But the issue here is what happens when the ORC boundaries, expertise and worldviews brought to decision may be at odds with the Maori worldview. And I just wondered, well, that's fair enough. That could well happen. Have we addressed that going forward into the other catchment management groups?
Thanks for that question. With this one and specifically, and all the other specifics regarding mana whenua input into this process, I've spoken at length with our mana whenua partner reps who are on the ICM working group, and the response that we've provided in the table is a summary of that discussion. So rather than pick at each of them individually, the representatives, which are from Te Ao Marama and Ōkaha, have undertaken to look at this as a big picture across the whole program. So that's just backing up why it's not addressed specifically. In terms of taking boundaries and Kia ora ki tae forward, yes, that's definitely coming forward very strongly in the Upper Lakes, which is the one we're halfway through at the moment.
So in other words, although that's a suggestion for improvement, we're not going to activate that. It's the recommendations that are on table 1 that you are highlighting. Is that right?
Yes, it is, yeah, and it's important that those are seen as what staff are putting forward. As with any review, we need to have a look at what is put forward and look at the appropriate actions that we can implement to ensure the process works moving forward.
And Anna, am I correct in believing that the Ngā project on the Taiari will be an Ōkaha appointment, possibly in that space? That's all of the Runaka coming together.
Yeah, yes, you're correct. The Taiari Catchment Action Plan will be combined with a process that's already running, which has a governance group of DOC, ORC, and 2 Runaka, Puketaraki and Otako. So that governance is already in place, and it's slightly different to the model of governance approach for the other ones, but it's an opportunity we've taken, which I think we've outlined in this paper.
So each FMU to a certain extent may have it bespoke, depending on what the representation and what suits them. Yeah, thank you.
And finally, my last question was recruitment. Remunerate ICG members to acknowledge the knowledge that they bring in their time commitments. I'm surmising at the moment they're not paid, and I don't see any detail around that particular issue as to how you're going to remunerate them, at what level going forward, or even if there's a budget for such. Can you elaborate on that, please?
I might refer to Joe and Libby on this as well. This issue has come up previously when we were establishing the Catlins, and a decision was made to not remunerate members.
Yes, but you've put it in this recommendation here to remunerate. So why?
Sorry, Councillor Laws, are you able to give us a page reference either to the recommendation or within the paper itself?
Table 1.
Thanks.
Recommendations and actions for CAT development process. Under the subsection recruitment, there are 2 items: allow for more timing and structure in the selection process, and the second is remunerate ICG members to acknowledge the knowledge they bring and their time commitments.
Yeah, and it's written there that it says no change proposed, and at the moment they aren't remunerated, and through this table and this paper we're not recommending any change to that.
Right, okay. Gotcha.
And
Thank
then
you.
there was really good discussion in Catlins, and they decided that they'd rather the money was available for the actions. If there were money available, and that they would, facilitate the money better into the projects that the members were involved in, and they thought that was a priority.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCall.
Oh, hi. I just went to put my hand down, but can't you do it? You've said exactly correct as, with Michael's questions, all the other questions, I think, around the iwi involvement of that. It's every cap that we do will be different. And so there's going to be different representation, and you've got to look at that table. The first line is a recommendation of the consultant. The second line is not. So that's fine. I don't really have a question, Kate, to be fair.
I presume you're using your role as governance group, as working party governance group to give that impression.
That's correct.
As chair, I'd also like to say that there's difficulties by all members attending and participating. And while there was definitely an effort here, probably I think we have to reflect that it has to work for everyone. And I have been really impressed with the team, the way they've been fluid about changing the way they set meetings and ensuring the times changed. The staff were out until very late last night because there was a meeting last night. They're down there again today because meetings weren't scheduled on the same day. And these things, they're committing. They would have got home about 9 o'clock last night. The staff are being as flexible as they can to make it work for all members of the community participation. Last night we had at the CAPS meeting, one of the iwi reps couldn't be there, but their daughter stood in, ensuring and so that flexibility within that group to ensure that there's that voice. They've come up to their own solutions, which is great. We understood that Vincent being in the Auckland Islands was rather difficult for him to join Skype down there, or Zoom is not quite as accessible. So, any other questions? And sorry, was that yes? Sorry, Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah, particularly, are we on the paper or just the Catlins one? Because I've got a question on paragraph 22 and paragraph 23, one which is on the Upper Lakes and one which is on the Torrey.
Yeah.
So quite heavy. And so on 22, paragraph 22 is still awaiting mana whenua representation from Otago-based Runaka. So, and Okaha are helping develop the cultural values and the like. So, what I suppose quickly to set is when we did our values around our FMUs, it was very centric. The people of that community set those values. But does this mean that we're actually getting a generic set of Otago values as opposed to a set of values developed by iwi that live in the Upper Lakes?
What we've got there is a cultural narrative. The values are still identified by the group in the room, and in the Upper Lakes we have Darren Rewe and also Dean Farmer, who attends or not, but Darren is the representative from the Muruhiku Kiotaku site, Kotaku site.
Yeah. So we're confident that, the narrative as opposed to the values will be definitely orientated by iwi based as much possible in that area because it's gone. And then so thank you. And so on paragraph 23 for the Toiri, we've got a new model that we're going to shape that under, control that under, as opposed to the way we did it down at the Catlins. And I can see why we're doing that. But when was that model actually passed by governance, or when did that come?
The process for developing the CAP is the same, and that's the area that I'm involved in. The opportunity to team up with the Na'awa project, the Te Mana Otari, came about sometime when Dr. Palmer was still here, and it was more around the co-funding of a coordinator role for that particular project that the ORC are partners in, and our input to that was this is a good opportunity, given that the ORC are moving into Taira to develop a catch and action plan. and that Ngāawa project, which has the same boundary, was also looking to develop a type of management plan, we suggested it be the same plan and that we use the process we've developed through the ICM program. And so the process and the content and the way it's run out will be the same.
Right. So I have no problem with that at all. It's a very good initiative, but we don't need a governance. So yes, that's the way we're doing it. So we just say that's operational. Okay. Is that, yep, I'm comfortable. Yep. Good.
Thank you. And because I've been generous to Lloyd, did you want to say anything about the Upper Lakes project? Councillor Forbes, I think it's heading on to that.
Yeah, we had a meeting yesterday. It was workshop three, and I'd noted at the beginning of the workshop that people were starting to get a little frustrated, and I've had emails about it. We discussed it at the workshop yesterday. That we're in a phase of planning, which is difficult when you have a lot of people that want to do action. But team was great, took us all through. We've had really, really good attendance, I think. And everyone's showing up, and there was really good work yesterday done on prioritising, scoping and prioritising the issues. Is that you sum it up? And I think people were very are still engaged, and that's good. Just a little bit antsy, they want to get going, and they're worried about where the funding's going to come from.
You good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Any other statements before move? I've got a foreshadowed motion from Councillor Robinson.
One second.
Thank you. Seconded here. Are there anyone wanting to? We can take items 1 and 2 first. I think it's probably wise.
Question.
Yes.
Is this foreshadow motion forming part of this? It's not a change to an existing one.
College just popping them up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Cool. That's all right.
It just puts a name free, but I'm really happy. I feel slightly conflicted up here, although it's not a conflict of interest per se. Number 1 and 2, I would rather take first and make sure that there are no other nominations before we deal with that. Because if there are other nominations, and I'm really happy that there are, I will stand back and leave the room, if that is the case.
Yeah.
So I was checking, got a seconder.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Alexa. So do we just speak to 1 and 2 first? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. So yeah, I just wanted to first of all once again thank everyone that's been involved in what's been basically the CAP programs are going really well, and thanks to everyone that has been involved. The review is really useful as well. I think it's been good reading that. There have been some findings that are really positive, I think, and reflect some of the conversation and discussion that we've had around the table already, but good to see them independently assessed as well. That will help us as we roll these out across Otago, and we can see as well reflection through some of the feedback that's come from staff, but all in the report. But also in the recommendation that we've started, in the report, we've started taking on board some of this already. We've anticipated it, and through the Upper Lakes, we've started to already do a lot of what's been suggested. But in the Catlins, it showed that there were good public turnouts, first of all. People were interested, and they came along in good numbers, which was fantastic. And there was also diverse representation at those meetings, which is awesome. It showed that we had an approach which was participatory, transparent, and generally based on consensus, which is awesome as well. That's great that the independent assessor could see that. Also that science and facts were informing the discussion, and there were good linkages back to organisations such as ourselves where we can add value to community and conversations about issues that are really important to them. Rather than leading with the science, it informs the discussions that communities want to have, which is awesome. It noted the value of mana whenua involvement, and actually it was really good, and that was the feedback that we've had through our reps as well. Chair, you've often commented on that. And then looking further at the recommendations, there was some recommendations around mana whenua and whether or not a co-chair would be valuable. But as we've talked about already, there's a chance to think about other ways as well, I guess. Yeah, whether it's at the co-chair level all the way through to how do we best involve mana whenua, even at that flax roots level, I think. In terms of work on the ground and being involved as these go further into the doing phases. I think that's all valid. And then, yeah, there were some really useful recommendations around analysing who the stakeholders are and having a slightly stronger process there. And that this has already been picked up, and it noted that in the Upper Lakes area we've actually had an even more robust process, noting that we came from a really good starting point in the Catlins of really good turnouts and that they were diverse. We've even built on that to being stronger in the Upper Lakes, so that's great. What else? Yeah, that once we're coming up with a cap, though, that we need to be able to communicate that a little bit better and then seek the opportunity, I suppose, that comes with that for all of community rather than just those that have been involved. There was a real strong interest from community initially. How do we ensure that they have input on going into building that cap, their feedback sought, and it gets incorporated by that group? That's important. And it reflects that we've already started to implement it once again in the Upper Lakes. So yeah, we're learning all the time and we'll be able to refine these. There's never a perfect model, but good to know that we have been anticipating these and already acting. What else have we got? Yeah, taking the conservation standards approach as well was also recommended from the Catlins. I understand that is a approach that have we been taking that up? I think we have, yeah, nods there. So once again, there's lots of great learnings that have come from this first model, and thanks so much to everyone that's gone on that journey with us and agreed to be the first cap as well. That was a big deal and we've learned so much from it. So I just want to say from my perspective how valuable that has been. So yeah, thank you for the report which we're noting today. It's really good.
Any other debate? Councillor Noon.
Yeah, I think that we can reflect on the last 2.5 years when this ICM program first started, I suppose, grow leagues, so to speak. And it reminds me of a number of discussions that we've had historically, perhaps I've been around the table too long, but the importance of having non-regulatory mechanisms to help complement the regulatory regime that we have in place. So what I'm really trying to say there is that this is honing in on areas within catchments where it's been identified that the best bang for your buck, sorry, it comes back to money, but best bang for your bucks is spent in a certain space to get the best ecological outcome or environmental outcome. So I think that's really important. It's a great milestone to be at. And the Catlins certainly is, I think, has stood up well with regards to the evaluation process that's been complete. That's a fairly forensic eye across the Catlins process, and I think they've fared really well. And I'm heartened to think that the staff have the recommendations that fall out of that evaluation process. I think they've landed in the right spot. So thank you,
Councillor Forbes.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly note one little thing that happened yesterday that gives a bit of a flavour of how valuable this is in terms of bringing the people together, people who are experts in their own community with people who are experts in their subject. And that is, I was at a table and they were talking about lakes and scoping out, the issues and the pressures on lakes. And I mentioned that I'd looked at what happened in Taupō and how they had started working on storing that lake. And a guy pops up from ORC, his name's Marcus, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I did my PhD on that." And so, here was this relationship between people who know the lakes up in our headwaters really, really well, and somebody else who knows pretty much all there is to know in New Zealand about how those lakes have been finished, and bringing those two people together. Huge value in that. And I just wanted to note that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Malcolm, I think your hand is up.
Yeah, I have. Look, it's really great to see the progress that's being made in this whole catchment area. And we see this is the Environmental Implementation Committee, and one of the keys of all our environmental implementation will be the success of these action plans, but also the ability of those plans to bring our communities together. So I think that's going to be a real key. So my only thing I would say on it, and it looks as though we're doing, is to ensure that we're always seeking members for those groups that have a really strong history of bringing their community with them. So they may be an expert, but one of their greatest expertises will be being able to tap into the people of their community to bring them along with them. So well done and great progress, and we'll see you in North Otago when you get there.
Councillor McCall?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's been really good discussions, and I probably agree with pretty much everything that's been said, but just for myself, I think we just need to understand that it's a start, and we've started the Catlins. The report, the evaluation report was pretty awesome. They said a lot of good things, but they gave us some work on that have been implemented. And I think the key thing is at the working group level, I think we're learning that every area is a little bit different, so you have to approach everything a little bit differently to get to your same outcome. And that's why this program is working so well, is because the conservation standard system and the system that they're running is very adaptable to pretty much every situation. And I think that's really appreciated. And I think the key for the ongoing success of the program is we've got a good working group going, and it's changing as we're going from one to the other. Where then, with the Catlins have had their own working group, and they come together really awesome. They've got the stage where they've got their catchment action plans. Now they're right at starting the doing end, and the key is for that group now to spread wider into their community to be able to multiply the effort to get the outcomes. And that's really the next step, which is the end result, which is the most important part that we don't want to actually say to the Catlins, job done, because the job's only really finished. So that's really good. And go to the Upper Lakes one. The Upper Lakes one is really amazing, the way we've got two sides of the hill come together, and we were a bit worried about it, but because we've all got common ground and we've got a strong team leading it, that group, I couldn't make the meeting yesterday obviously, but that group has come together really well as well, and they're making decisions at a slightly better level because they're a little bit more advanced in the thought train. That might not be very the right word. So there's a lot of people really active in the conversation area up there now, and they've all got their own initiatives and areas, but they're all pulling together, and that's the whole key of it, is pulling the people together. So the next step, that was coming together, and they've got their group, and I imagine they'll have an action plan for us before the end of I'd like to say this trimester, but maybe by the end of this year. Then we move to the Taieri, and the Taieri is, it's another group. It's another waterway that's really quite long and got lots of things. So the key here is to start at the working group to set up the procedures to be able to pull in all the projects that are going now and get the right people at the table to lead it to the next level. It's all about the people. So I just like to say well done to the team that's leading the group, and I'd also like to say well done to all those people that are participating in the group. And we're getting wide participation across all spheres, all people within the areas. So I think it's really awesome. So well done. I just look forward to continuing on the journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll try and find my hand now to put it down.
Any other discussion? I'd just like to say a special thank you to the staff. They have as someone who's been, and thank you for letting me do the Catlins, the rest of the council, I've absolutely enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure being out in the field with some awesome community-minded people. Where the human capacity issues down there should not be underestimated, and the help that the staff have given to bring it all together has been amazing. What has been really good is it just hasn't been the ICM team going down. There's been a bit of science and a bit of the catchment group advisors and things like that. There's always someone else coming into the room and being introduced and having a say. And that is seeing this council at its best, breaking down silos and really interacting with the community group really well. So for those, all of the staff who've made it happen, and sharing all of those other points that have been made, I think this is the front face of the council that everyone should be very proud of. And especially to the team that I've seen rolled out, is they've really been back. It's taken it very hard, taken some of the criticism to heart, I think, when it's a brand new project and the examples and the ability to roll it out wasn't necessarily easy. So and they've been fabulous at just picking up the pieces where they can. So on that basis, would you like to have a right of reply, Councillor Robertson?
Well, just to say that no one should ever feel bad about the findings from the recommendation. Gosh, there were so many positive things that came out of this, and yeah, we're extremely proud of what the community's achieving in the Catlins area. So thank you.
I will now put the motion for numbers 1 and 2 of the recommendations. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. I now check whether there are any other nominations. Oh, please, sorry, Lloyd. On your button quicker. Sorry, that wasn't I. But yes, after last week's meeting, I should have checked. If there any other nominations, and I really want people to be very aware that they're more than welcome to nominate anyone else for the Taiauri. Otherwise, we'll put that motion. Do you wish to speak to that motion? I hope not.
I will make it comfortable for you and not speak on that motion. I'd love to. Thank you.
Councillor McCall.
Complicated this going on. I'd just like to say a couple of things, Kate. I think, and as I said just previously, it's really important that we get the right people in the working group level. We need to get the people that got the stretch into the communities to make sure that we end up getting the right people at the table. And so I think that's really important that we. Oh gosh, now I've lost you all. Can you?
We can hear
still
you.
There?
No. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I think so. Oh gosh, so it's really. I think it's really important to get the right people in, and I think Kate really fits the role. She knows the area up and down, and I know we worked together in the first working group as well, and it's going to between Kate and myself and the other reps on the working group that we'll be able to put together a strong governance group to oversee that project, which is going to really rely on getting those right people to be able to knit it together and to build an overall integrated catchment plan for the whole area at the level that we're seeking to do across Otago. So I'll certainly support that nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other people wish to speak to that? Thank you. No, good. No right of reply given. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining. Anyone no? I've got the time on the mics. Okay, none. Passed. Thank you. Next item. Thank you very much, staff, and please pass those messages on to the other members. Wilding Conifer business case. Libby, you're going to lead this paper, and we've got online, I think, Will and Helen. Welcome to the meeting. I'll also be in the way that I do. If Alexa, as chair of the Wilding Pine, wish to talk about this in her governance role, very happy for you to put your hand up, not for a question, but to add to the discussion, if that's okay.
Thanks, might do that later.
Thank you.
Thank you. So online we've got Helen Nathan from Boffin-Mistle and Will McBeath, who's our project delivery specialist in biosecurity, sits in the environmental implementation team. So this paper is to present the business case that Boffin-Mistle have prepared to outline the opportunity to explore, and to outline an opportunity for us to explore some other funding options. So the preparation of the business case is an action that fell out of the wild and conifer strategy for Otago, which was prepared and presented, endorsed by council in, I think it was November 2023. So it's an action that we've completed and we're just presenting that for noting today. And there is a recommendation as well to endorse option 1, which is that council staff continue to engage with other regional councils and government agencies to explore funding opportunities for wild and conifers, which would support and enhance delivery of the existing programs that we're already running in Otago.
Thank you. Did no one else want to comment? Oh, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Ware?
The time, just within the report, I sort of noting that there's discussion of the risk that wilding pines pose to wildfires. But I was just thinking about some of the research from Sarah Wise at University of Canterbury and some others around actually the risk of wildfires to wilding pines and how hybrid species potentially have less wilding potential but increased potential to be spread by wildfires and for those cones to be like activated by the heat and stuff. So the questions I had were first, did we cover different varieties and hybrids and stuff in that analysis from Boffa-Miskell? And then I guess a question potentially for staff, potentially for just us generally is are we treating any wildfires that occur near plantations and reacting to them as weed incursion events?
I might pass the first question to Helen, which was about whether we've covered some of those varieties of pines. Did you hear that, Helen?
Yes, I heard that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can say for the analysis that we did, that wasn't taken into consideration. So the report that we wrote was intended to be read in conjunction with the analysis that Sapere had done in 2022 and 2023. And their cost-benefit analysis was more detailed than ours, basically, and they did those models as to the impact of fire risk and that kind of thing. Based on what I recall of that document, I don't think that they would have taken into consideration things like varieties. It was kind of more a high-level estimate based on talking to fens and things like that. But yeah, certainly the Boffa-Miskell analysis did not look at that in any detail.
And the other question?
Can you just repeat the end of your second question for me?
Are we treating wildfires or reacting to them as potential weed incursion events when they happen near pine plantations?
A weed incursion event?
Yes, or like a wilding pine spread event.
Oh, I see what you mean. We haven't done that analysis at this point, but that is something that we could look into, and Will can help me with that.
Yeah, it's just some interesting research
Yeah.
out there that I'm not fully on top of, but
Yeah.
it sounds.
And it's ever evolving research as well, isn't it? So, but we can have a look into how, unless you want to comment now, Will, you've popped on the screen.
I can make a quick comment regarding the hopefully you can hear me okay. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, beauty. Right. Yeah, when a wildfire occurs, of course, it does introduce a pathway for lots of weeds. It's not something specific to wilding conifers in any way. There's many weeds that will reinvade a landscape that's been ravaged by fire. Conifers typically come from North America and environments that are fire bred and rely on fire to transmit seeds. And there have been cases in Canterbury where observations of post-fire germinations have been intense. So yes, it is an occurrence, but it's not something you track specifically for conifers, unless there was a burn over site of an area of conifers that was burnt.
Thank you, councillor Forbes.
Thank you. I just wonder if we know how much shortfall, we know that our shortfall's 44 million for Otago. Do we know what it is for other regions? Have we got that? I'm not sure if it was in there. I didn't notice it.
No, I don't know exactly. I believe that we're the first regional council to undertake, we were the first regional council to undertake the cost benefit analysis. I think we're also the first to do the business case to back that up. So I don't think it's been done region wide across the country.
It's a massive shortfall. It would be quite neat to know what Canterbury's is, for example, if we're going to buddy up with these guys, which I think we should be. So it's just, yeah, we haven't got that. That's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Mifflin?
Yeah, it's the same sort of question on the shortfall. The $44 million over 10 years, is that sort of, is it averaged over 10 years? Like, is it 4.4 million a year? Or is there some front loading involved in all of that? Like it might be more in the first few years than the 4.4 million. So that's the first question. And the second one is, have we done any kind of analysis onto what that might do in terms of sticking within our planned budget for our annual plan?
So I can comment on the second question, and no, we haven't done any analysis on what this would do for the planned budget at this point. Helen, are you able to let us know on how that 44 million would be phased over the 10 years?
No, not in any detail. Sorry, we did for the analysis just kind of spread it out equally over the 10 years, but I can understand that in practice it might not work out that way. But we didn't have kind of the level of detail to be able to work it out to that level.
No worries.
Just checking, if I may, if there are any updates. I mean, how is the relationship with the government agencies that you talk about in here and where they're sitting? They've obviously put some money in.
Are you referring to DOC? Which government agencies are you?
And the recommendations that talks about noting that you're going to continue talking to the regional councils and government agencies, and I just think it's helpful. It's in the report, but I just want to understand at what level and whether there are any changes to how that's working.
Absolutely, we have very strong relationships with both regional councils and the government departments that we are engaging with, and Will does that regularly with EPI. So he's got a really close connection into their program manager for the national wilding program. I don't envisage that our relationship's changing, other than if it's endorsed today, that we can start having more conversations about how we might leverage funding. And that's more looking at what Environment Canterbury are exploring in regards to how they might fund some of the work that they would like to do, utilising the government in a different way. But there's no problem with our relationship with the other agencies we're working with.
And the fact that there was some extra money that did come in, which is manifest that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussions? Or thank you, Councillor Melton.
Our paragraph 13, which starts with our continued investment and intervention, we won't be doing very good. So I'm just wondering, where are we at with the areas that have had action taken upon them? Where are we at with the owners taking over that responsibility because the work's been done?
So I can comment on this, and then I might pass to Will if there's anything to add. So there's at this point we haven't got any landowners that we've handed the properties back to yet, but we do have I think what your question might be alluding to is that within our regional pest management plan, we have rules that state if there's been public money invested in a property for wilding control since 2016, those landowners have a responsibility to maintain that investment in perpetuity. So we can enforce those rules once the properties are handed back. We're not in a position to do that yet because we haven't handed them back, because the infestations are still being managed either through through the national program funding that we receive.
That's really good. So if in fact we do get to a stage and we hand that property back, where are we in our plan, i.e. with Gorse, where we've got the good neighbour rule? If the property next door hasn't been dealt to, where are we at in putting enforcements on the untended property?
We also have good neighbour rules within our
Yep.
plan for wilding conifers as well, and there's a few sites that we're actively pursuing, ensuring that that is undertaken.
Thank you. And I have another one, if that was possible.
Yes, councillor.
So of the 480,000 plus hectares that have wildings upon them within the Otago region, have we, and we're saying, I think that it was around about 2,000 for a heavy infestation, was about 2,000 a hectare to 2018 prices to go and give that a good zap and a good tidy up. Of that land, how much of that land is actually Crown controlled land of that 480,000 hectares, and have we done that anywhere?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm wondering if Will has any indications of what that is, or if we can come back to councillors on with some stats.
I'm unable to give an exact figure of how much is Crown land. I haven't across Otago wide to add that up, but that is something we can come back to answer that. But in general terms, the wild and conifer control under the program that the council guides across Otago, it is undertaken across LINZ, NZTA, and public conservation land in many cases. And there's been a significant amount of work carried out on public conservation land through the funds from the national program, which of course comes from government for the public conservation lands that are government, as well as the local office, the local conservation departments to contribute to their work as well. We've also had contributions from LINZ for LINZ managed Crown lands, specifically from them, but also through their contributions to the National Conifer Program.
So which is really good, and that's sort of leading to where I'm leading with that, is that if in fact they are actually just giving money and to clean up their own land, it would be nice to know that proportion of land. So if we're looking at monies on private land that has possibly been infested by conifers, wilding conifers from Crown land, that would give us extra rooms for pressure. So those proportions would be really good, because it is they've made the stand to say, well, let's get rid of them, so we're putting this money in. But in fact, it would be really neat to say, well, you're just putting money. It's great to see you doing it, but so much of it is your land anyway. So I think that's an important figure for the public to understand.
Yeah, and we can check with NPI as well. They might have some more detail on that, and if not, we can do some estimates around with mapping around where that is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to move that.
I've moved already, but yeah.
You've got.
Yeah, thank you. I'll work my second of I'll see what the motion is shortly. Councillor Neetham.
Can I just seek some clarification on these recommendations? I just want to be clear that today we are not approving an additional $44 million outside of our annual plan to fight these conifers. That's not going to happen.
I'd rather you didn't.
I haven't heard the motion yet.
Right.
So
no, that's just, I just want to clarify that. So in this recommendation, we are exploring funding options. That's all it is.
It's really going to start the okay to carry out those conversations with other councils and government to explore how we might be able to achieve that. Because we think it's a good idea.
That's good.
We could
I wanted that recorded.
But we could do it, but we would have to reprint Te Matapuna, wouldn't we?
Thank you. But let's have a motion on the books and then we'll know exactly what we're moving. I don't know, Alexa is rather passionate about this and may well move that. Councillor Forbes, you've indicated you wish to move something.
Well, I'm happy to move the motion that's on the books at the moment.
The recommendation. Option one.
Yeah, option one, that we work with the others to do this. And do you want me to speak to it now?
Yes. Sorry, no, I'll get a second up, which I think it was Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, thank you. You now speak to it, please.
Yeah, I just feel that we really need to work with our neighbours on this to find this funding. You know, it's all tied up in that one paragraph at the end of one of those reports about avoiding losses of 2.8 billion over 50 years by figuring out where we get 44 million for the Otago problem now over the next 10 years. So that sums it up, and it's just a no-brainer on any level, and I'd like us to get going with that. The management units are well set up. They have the relationships with landowners, the stakeholder relationships are in place. This is another example of non-regulatory ways of getting things done. But we need to find that funding, and I think the way of doing that is working with the other councils. I would like to see their reports at some point, and when they start figuring out how much of a shortfall they've got. I think that's going to be important so that we can have a combined, I don't know if it's a formal business case or whatever. We need to find the funding to do this somehow.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Robertson?
Thank you. Yeah, it was really useful to get some additional funding recently. It's not enough to sustain the work that we need to be doing in Otago. We have been working closely with our partners we've got partners throughout New Zealand. Wilding conifers are a national issue. That's why we have the National Wilding Conifer group. But anyway, we've been closely working with Canterbury and Southland and awaiting this paper today to see what you all felt about approaching government and working together. So it'll be good to get that happening. We're ready to go. We have a wilding conifer strategy. We have done the work on benefits and costs in Otago. In Otago, we have the most vulnerable land in New Zealand. We have 70% of our region assessed as very highly vulnerable. And yeah, what are the issues around that? We've talked about lots of times before, but reduced water yield in catchments that are afforested can be 30 to 80%. That's standard across catchments throughout the world. Competing native vegetation, wildfire, and reduction in productive land, and of course those landscape and recreational values that people in Otago and broader than Otago enjoy of our landscapes as well. So yeah, we need to be working really closely with all the partners on this issue. That's those that can influence government, and it's government. We all benefit from controlling wilding conifers, and we must get on with it. And as Councillor Forbes has recognised as well, we have a lot of experience already in controlling these. We have groups already established who have got a lot of experience. We are hitting the ground running, and we can't lose the fight on this. We will lose far too much if we go backwards at all. And it's not a forever thing either. So this isn't an ongoing funding forever type of thing that we need, conversation that we need to have. We need to have the conversation that investing now will save money in the future. We need wilding pines to get to a sustainable level where landowners can control them themselves. So it's not a we do the work forever type of scenario. But yeah, due to historic land use and practices, there are losers, I suppose, on land where wilding conifers are now that do need our support to get them under control, and we all benefit from seeing that happen. So I guess that's a plea to anyone that's listening that we're still here and we still care about wilding conifers a lot, and we are up for that conversation. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Noon.
This is a no-brainer. It's just so important that we're able to hopefully find extra funding and resource going forward to ensure that we support those existing eradication programs that are being implemented by independent groups with our support. And also, if you look at the regional pest management plan, Wilding conifers sit in the progressive containment space, and progressive containment means maintaining the gains and making progress. So that's absolutely critical going forward. So we desperately need more money, and I wish the staff good luck with the conversations with whoever's got something to offer.
Any other speakers? I will say something. Look, I have a huge amount of respect for the work that the community is doing in this space and our staff are doing in this space. I do feel at times though that I want to put my hands up in despair, because we have got a forestry industry and a carbon industry that seems to be going in a potentially different direction. And it was interesting to hear Councillor Robertson talking about retaining productive land. It is really hard in some land to be productive now. And we need to be really sure that with all of the best of intent around this table that have been expressed, that the policy doesn't drive completely the opposite of what we've tried to intend to do here. And that means making sure that what is productive land can remain productive and can be used. And I think we need to make sure that again, having that registry speaking to the non-registry space, I do despair with some of the forestry that is around and has been sanctioned and is with all of the best of intent. It's not been critical of those people getting the government to set the policy right in the first place. And that may be best at a catchment level with catchment action plans and with some teeth in the game that we can willingly get some of that forestry dealt with, which otherwise, and you look up at the top of the Lake Onslow and areas like that, that just is, I just don't know how you fix that unless we get in and can talk to the people. And thank you for your thumbs up, Councillor Lord, Councillor Call. Yeah, we need to think of some of those really difficult ones and how we deal with it. So I support the motion. I think there's some other stuff we have to be doing over and above this, because I think we've got some of the other policies, or they're just really hard, and they're just conversations about how do we move some of those areas on. They're just hard work. So while this is one response, I don't know that it covers the whole of the issue and people's desire for landscape change. So I would be supporting it. Would you like to sum up, Councillor, right reply, Councillor Forbes?
Yeah, just quickly, I think there needs to, we need to rethink what is productive land. More and more research is showing us that sometimes land that's not productive in our normal sense of the word is productive in other senses. A great example of that is snow tussocks and managing to harvest water vapour from the skies and bring it back into the land. So there's all sorts of, the more research we do, the more we find we need to lose things like wilding pines and control them, and we may need to rethink other things as we go along. We do need regulations. We do need to think about how people are forced to control their wildings, especially when they're forests. There's a lot of other thinking to go around it. But to do this part and find ways to find that 44 million shortfall that we need is just part of the whole discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I've heard no suggestions to the against, so we know we put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? None. Thank you. Motion's passed. Thank you. Option 1. Going now to paper 9.3. Welcome, Mr.
I'm saying thank you, Will and Helen.
Oh, yes, thank you, Will and Helen, yes. Now, this is 9.3 is the paper on the Catchment Advisor Work Programme. We've got Oliver Eden-Mann here, who's now leading the catchment team, and Libby and Joe. This is to outline the Environmental Implementation Committee, the work completed by the Catchment Advisors and the work programme for 24-25 financial year. Please.
So just briefly before I pass over to Libby and Ollie, we're really excited to bring this paper to this committee. I know it's been asked for a while, and it's really great that we've got the team in a position to be able to bring this up, and very excited to have the team present. So I'll pass over to Libby and Ollie.
Thank you. Just introducing Ollie as well. It's his first committee or council meeting today. So welcome. So this paper outlines and provides highlights achieved this financial year to date for the catchment team. We're really excited, as Joe said, to share this paper with you and provide some more insight into the work the team do connecting with communities and schools and support enhancing the environment through behaviour change. So we're just happy to have some questions and comments.
Thank you, councillor Ware. Pull the mic towards you. Any questions? Can I ask a question in the absence of another one? When do we get the work program for 25-26? Is that, I don't want to be too difficult on your first meeting, Oliver, but this is, yeah.
Yeah, kia ora everyone, by the way. Yeah, so that'll be coming before the end of the sort of financial year. So we're just currently looking at the one we've just done from 2024, 2025, and just making those refinements before. So I'm not sure exactly when, but it'll be relatively soon.
Excellent. Thank you. No other questions? Everyone is delighted with your work. It's been really good to be out in the field and seeing them. I had the great time with Jack and Max and others out, and then I'm sure we're all going to enjoy your company on Friday and Saturday. There are, who would like to move the motion? I'm happy to move.
Second. Yeah, that's
You didn't have anything else to say? You're not anticipating it's too easy. It's going to be this easy every time, honestly. Sorry, Councillor New.
Just in the process of thinking of.
Oh, you want? There isn't a requirement to make it life hard for
I'm
them.
just trying to put my historic farming hat on, but I suppose the question for Oliver is, what is the most common challenge that you have for your group of catchment advisors? Yeah, so what's the most topical challenge that the community and catchment advisors have when they're talking to farmers? So, because what I would anticipate is that the thing that scares the living daylights of with regards to the farmers dealing with an environment is the regulatory space. So I'm just trying to understand how you incorporate your role to ensure that you're not coming across as planners, but you're coming across, and there's no disrespect to any planner in the room. Sorry, I'll withdraw that comment. There's no disrespect to anybody in the ORC space, but I'm just trying to understand, how do you manage those sorts of situations when a farmer is sort of pretty desperate to understand, but probably reluctant to sort of paint a picture in his own mind about his own situation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think you've nailed it really around. The biggest concern at the moment is that regulation space. It's coming up time and time again with who we are engaging with, not just farmers, to be honest. And what we've moved back into is that promoting best practice. So that space hasn't changed. It's still, obviously there's a bit of change in that regulation space recently. For likes of intensive winter grazing, for example, that's changed completely of how we those workshops we ran last year are going to be completely different this year in terms of how we run them, because there isn't that regulation to potentially back it up at the moment. But the best practice is the same. So we're really moving into that sort of more educating and answering questions where we can, and then referring back to that sort of holding that really of best practice.
And if I may, that is also the practice that across the board with our consent inquiries teams or our compliance teams, is when we are having those conversations, the team are very education focused and friendly and open to that, and that's been something that those teams have heavily focused on for the last 5 years. So the joy of being a group together is that we can complement and work together on delivering those messages and empower the catchment advisors to go out and have those conversations, but to enable that feedback to spread across the teams within the group to further that community focused approach that we're all after.
So can I assume that the 3 E's, engage, educate, enforcement, is still at the forefront of any staff members' minds that are in the regulatory space, planning space, advisory space?
Yes.
Simple answer. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Metham, and then Councillor Robinson.
I'd just like to help with Oliver's induction process here by asking a question around, so you've mentioned that you're engaged in string health checks. Just in terms of communicating the results, what are the steps in doing that? What are your processes?
Great question. I think in terms of, depends really where it is and what the location is and who the group is, if those results potentially are communicated past the landowner. It's really in a space for trying to build capacity with that group, or with that catchment group, or landowner to undertake those stream health checks themselves. So we're not necessarily communicating the results on a sort of external basis. It's really around building that capacity so they can then go on in the future and do it themselves.
Do you see any advantage in communicating to a wider base on stream health? I mean, there's a lot of impressions that our waterways are not in very good condition, but they may be better than most people think.
Absolutely, and we do communicate on a wider basis in a more generic space on stream health around the importance of protecting and enhancing our freshwater. Two different things really in terms of one of them, the stream health checks with the likes of the catchment groups and farmers, and then we also have more of the education space that we do with the likes of primary schools, which is part of that stream health check space as well, and that's kind of where that education comes in.
Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thanks. It's great to have you here and be able to get a sense of what are the big issues and main feedbacks that you're getting. I think that was a good question from Councillor Noon, so it sparked me off to ask as well. How much are we offering advice, I suppose, in that best practice area on farm? It's something that we often have discussed as a council, and you've noted there around overlap with others as well. So how are we mainly focusing on intensive winter grazing, or are we offering a service of giving feedback on best practice on farms?
Yeah, so we are definitely offering the best practice space. We aren't trying to predict what isn't there, obviously. So trying to align with what's existing in other external spaces. The likes of using what NEVA's putting out and sort of freshwater farm plan, NZ Plus space, aligning with that type of work is kind of what we're currently doing. Libby might have something to add to that as well.
So we're working closely with the rest of our directorate, and that sits under Joe as well, with the compliance and the consents team to figure out what are the queries that are coming in, and then we focus on those specifically. That gets us away onto farm. And the other way we do that is through our stream health checks too, and offering that kind of support service to try and encourage behaviour change, so that when people understand what's special about what they've got, then they have more incentives to protect that. So, but we're not trying to step into that advisory space that consultants provide, and that's not a specific skill set we have either. So we're walking kind of a fine line of that, and we talk about that regularly around what is the line. We don't want to give advice to someone that then fails, but we want to ensure that they have the best advice around specific topics like dairy effluent, intensive winter grazing. They're the key ones we're focusing on at the moment because we know they're topical, and we will join up with other organisations such as Dairy NZ. We've got staff attending workshops, our staff attending Dairy NZ workshops, and they also offer to help us. So we've got really good connections and relationships with those other organisations to help us when it's kind of out of our expertise area as well, if that helps.
Thank you. There are no other questions. I'm happy to move. Who would like to second the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Are you wanting to ask a question, Councillor McCall, or are you just happy to second?
Councillor Forbes is second.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did want to speak to this because I had a wonderful experience the other day. I was out doing our stream health monitoring personally, and I couldn't identify a little critter in my ice cube tray that we had pulled out of the creek, and so I sent a text to our local catchment advisor, Jack Matheson, on a Sunday afternoon, and I had a response within 1 minute. And that is not what I expected. And I just want to say it was absolutely stunning service. He did tell me he wasn't normally working and he just had pulled out his computer, and it was just fortuitous. But the service was fantastic. And I just wanted to also respond to Councillor Metham. If you want to see how good the results are or bad, depending on how you read them, I highly recommend going to Water Lab, where there are samples encouraged by and taught by the catchment advisors all over Otago, which tell some pretty good news stories about what are some of the creeks out there. And having just got my results this morning and still not understanding them, it's pretty exciting, some of the stories. So I've heard some really exciting results right down to the coast, and that stuff again is being pushed out by the team in a pretty awesome way. So thank you. You wish to speak to that as well?
Yeah, thank you. While we're on storytelling, I just wanted to share something really positive as well. I'm randomly sitting next to a gentleman who farms in Otago on the aeroplane recently, and I did not know this person. Often you do in this role, but I didn't. And he just wanted to feedback that there's many people in his community that feel bombarded by written material and also find that reading isn't their preferred way of taking in information as well. But the one thing that he said without prompting was that the catchment advisors are the people that are trusted and you can go to safely for a conversation because they are interested, they really want to know about their specific area as well, and everyone wants to learn and to to reach the best performance standards that they possibly can, because obviously everyone cares about their area. So I just wanted to feedback that positive story. It's just one example that we often hear, but a big thanks to your teams and thanks for what you're doing, and it's really valuable to have this report as well. Thank you.
Oliver's going to come and expect very high things at the next meeting, which I know it's a very high bar to keep up. Councillor McCall.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to also thank you for the report, Ollie and Livia and Co. I think it's really encouraging, and 508 engagements in 7 months, I think it is. So that's 508 people that had direct contact with ORC in a positive light, and I think that's really the key. That when actually, it's good to see Livia, you and Ollie and your teams getting out there into the community, actually working with the community as a one-on-one and as basically as peers. So in actual fact, you guys, in a lot of ways, you're the window for the ORC, and it's a role that we don't have to have within the council, but it's a role that we must have within the council, because at the end of the day, you are the connector. I think it's you're the window for the ORC. I've written down here, and I think the next thing that's really impressed me over probably the last 6 or 8 months is that your teams, the teams getting out there, and you're actually starting to work. We're working together with the other organisations. So often you see ORC in the room with MPI and the catchment group networks and Meat and Lamb and the industry bodies as well. And I just really like to take my hat off to you guys for actually putting yourselves in that place, that you're actually being well respected, that you're in a position of respect, but you're in a that you've worked as an equal with the MPIs and the catchment group people, and that's how it must work. So everybody's listening to each other and sharing the information moving forward, and we can all go forward together. So thank you very much to that. And I know there's been an initiative coming out of the Otago catchment community as well, there's a 3-day hui, I think, at one of the maraes around facilitation, and that's being attended by 2 or 3 of the catchment ones and catchment group people and MPI across this, and obviously iwi representatives as well. But that's how everybody's working together for the same goal, and that's where we can actually make really good progress. And I just get the feeling that there's a change in attitude, and we're getting the wheels of progress, into the non-regulatory space are starting to roll along. So thank you very much for the input, and I look forward to continuing on that journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you. There's no one else wishing. Oh, sorry, Councillor Kelleher.
I'd just like to pass on thanks to the catchment advisors as well, and also that you are welcome to ignore councillor texts on Sunday.
I absolutely. I didn't expect a response. I think I even said I didn't expect a response. I was just.
Fancy even sending it.
It may, okay. On that,
We'll check on our well-being of ourselves.
I did say that I was somewhat. Anyway, the confessional from me being bad is finished. I won't do that again. I'll now put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Well done. May it always be that good.
I'm trying to lower.
That's so weird.
We've now got the last paper for the day, and it's, I think, the shortest paper. And I just want to say before we get into the avian influenza paper, that sometimes we give the shortest time to some of the most significant work. And this is the defence team with the ORC keeping us out of trouble and making sure that this stuff is contained. And the brevity that we probably will bear with us today does not give it justice to the severity and the effects that it could have on our community. So thank you, team, for the report. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, please. So firstly, I've got another new person in front of the committee and you've just set really good expectations. This is Rob Wynn. He's the team leader for biosecurity.
Welcome,
And he
Rob.
started in September,
October, yes.
So this paper is an overview of the environmental implementation team's role in avian flu. If avian flu is found in New Zealand. We also seek endorsement of the work we are doing in this space to prepare and support the response, which is to be coordinated by Biosecurity New Zealand and DOC. So it's pretty much just detailing what ORC's role is in this space, and it is quite short, but we are happy to take questions now.
Any questions, or is everyone feeling comfortable that the defences are looking pretty healthy? Councillor Malcolm.
Afternoon. I'm just wondering whether you've reviewed after the outbreak that we've just had up Trotter's Gorge, have we reviewed the dissemination of the information that we've done, and was that successful? That's our key role, as I understand it.
Yeah, so as part of that preparedness, that kind of kicked off us to get into the coordination space. Before that, we weren't really doing active preparedness, but we're now, with that, it's kind of kicked us off to become the coordination of the role. This is all kind of a work in progress in some ways, because we're a little bit waiting on MPI to do some of the preparedness for us to be able to disseminate some of that information. We're not the experts on avian influenza in the council. We're kind of reliant on MPI in some ways for some of that work. Yeah.
So we learned some really good lessons by the outbreak in North Otago around where the gaps were in the information that was going out to the community and how we were contacted and informed about what was happening as well.
Yep.
So that we'll continue to learn as there's other outbreaks of whatever there is. But we think we're in a good space for if the avian flu does arrive in New Zealand.
And Louis, are we comfortable as an organisation we're putting enough pressure on MPI to give us the information we require to do our job correctly?
Yes.
Cool.
Councillor Metham.
Just interested in the comment about vaccinating threatened species. Is this something that you can do prior to avian flu coming into the country? Is it, if so, how would you go about that?
So that's really working in the DOC space. So Department of Conservation is leading that piece of work, and it's looking at your penguin species, your hoiho, those kind of seabird species that are critically endangered or endangered and need that extra additional help in that. But when we're talking about vaccines, it's like a moving feast at the moment. So they're developing vaccines to combat H1N1, but there's some efficacy issues with it of all vaccines. If we're kind of giving it to an endangered species that may not have had it tested on, it becomes a bit of an issue. So
kill them off.
Yeah, so DOC is doing a lot of work in the space. It's not for us, the Otago Regional Council, but it's something to be aware of, that they are doing some key work in that space, looking at what species would they want to vaccinate or risk vaccinating without actually being able to do the proper work to study it, the effects.
Thanks.
Councillor Noon.
The biosecurity hotline, have we got any link on our website to that
either the hotline number or any other information from New Zealand Biosecurity?
We've had this conversation internally with the comms team about how we do this. And so for me, if I want somebody, if somebody puts in HPAI or avian influenza, I want MPIs to be the first thing that comes up in the search. I'm hesitant to have, if we put avian influenza or Otago and have ORC as the first one, because we want to direct them straight away to them. But we could, in theory, have something on our website, but just not make sure it's like the first hit that comes up, because I want MPI's website to be the first port of call for anybody. Because because they're the leading agencies with the expertise internally.
And any of our comments that we've released so far around, mostly that was around the other strain in North Otago. We shared MPI's contact number, and I think we did a media release as well that had, and we do share it through that, but I can check the website too.
Thank you.
Councillor Malcolm?
So did I hear that right, that if I am someone out there that sees something that I think is the flu, and I think, well, it's environment, so I go to RRC, when I go on to RRC, you're going to immediately direct them to the right place?
Yeah, so I was
As
talking
opposed to
about
going
if you
to an
put it
officer,
into
yeah.
a search engine, the first hit will be the MPI website and not ORC. So if you put in avian influenza Otago, it wouldn't come to the ORC, it would go straight to the MPI website. But we can, if we went to the ORC, we could have a link in there that I can take away and actually do something.
Yeah, because I think most people would more likely just Google or zap in ORC, who do I contact there about it?
Yeah.
So it'd be quite
As
easy.
we have with other issues
Yeah.
like this, we will make sure that we have the right facilitative information on our website in terms of either contacting us or what the procedures are. So
Yeah,
let me take the point to make sure that we have really good, clear information on our website. And we've also got an internal process being set up in terms of what do we do if we get these calls and who do they go to.
Yeah.
So all of that will be under control. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? I'm happy to note this report and thank the sample working coordination as part of that noting. Kevin, the second.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak any further on that? No, or I'll put the motion, all in favour, please say yes. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That leads us to the end of the day. We won't do a karaoke because we've got another workshop this afternoon. Thank you. That was an easy ride. Hopefully it'll be as good next time as well. Thank you very much, Robert. And team. Thank you all, and we shall be back here at 3 for a workshop.
Start at 3.